In this video, we're building a simple personal finances tracker that would allow us to save money by giving us two insights. First, how much we're spending versus what our income is each month, and then how much we're spending per category so we can pay more attention to the categories that bleed more cash. Each of us has two main numbers that we need to pay attention to every single month. The first one is how much money we make, which is our income, and the second one is how much we spend, which is our expense for this month. By tracking those two numbers, we are able to figure out whether we're spending more than we're earning, or we're able to retain a bit of our income, which we're gonna call net income. And it's important to keep track of this number because it would help us figure out how much we can put aside each month to either to a rainy day fund or maybe towards a larger purchase that we're thinking about. The other important aspect is to track how much we're spending in different categories. For example, I know I tend to spend too much on ordering food or eating out. If I have this in front of me as actual monetary value that goes out of my pocket each month, this would help me figure out how I can reduce this and bring it to a more adequate level. There are a ton of apps and templates for tracking your finances out there. I've tried a lot of them over the years. I've built a lot of my own tools in Excel, and those have always had all the bells and whistles, and eventually I'll just stop using them because it's too much effort to input everything. So over the years, I've gradually decreased the level of complexity, and what I'll show you today is what I actually use for myself. This version of my finances tracker only takes me 2-3 minutes before I go to bed to just go through my bank app and see what I paid during this day, or whether I received my salary or some YouTube AdSense revenue, and also to think about, okay, did I pay anything in cash today? So I can just put it in there. Now let's open Excel and spend a few minutes building it out. This is my header at the top, and the way we'll structure this is we'll have a summary table up here that has a start and end date for each month throughout the year. We'll have our various categories of expense and income items over here. And here we'll have a table where we can add line items, and the summary would work automatically. My start date, end date, income, expense, and net income. Format this real quickly. Okay, let's expand them a bit. And my first start date, and color it as an input, gonna be first 24, and my end date for each month is gonna be this date, but I'll use the end of month function, and I'm gonna say that this is the start date, and I want to add 0 months, which would essentially give me the last date of this month. Format this as a date, and then my next start date, I can just grab the end date and add 1 day. Remember, in Excel, dates are numbers, so you can just add and subtract. See that this is a leap year. I'm gonna drag this all the way down to December, and those are my start and end dates. We'll type in the formulas for income and expense a bit later once we have our table below, but our net income is gonna be income minus expense. Use Ctrl-D to drop that down, bold it, and format it in accounting format. Actually gonna format those as well. Have a total row down here. I'm gonna format it like that, bold it, and for each of those is gonna be the sum of the column. And that's our structure here. So the next thing we wanna do is we wanna have our categories. I'm gonna say category. Also have a class, which will be either income or expense. And we'll also have a summary down here that would show all our income and expenses based off of the category. Let's format those. Let's say gonna be white, and our background color is gonna be dark blue. Now let's add some categories. In my personal file that I'm using, I have quite a lot of categories, but let's just add a few here. You can add as many of those as you want, and what I'll do is I'm gonna select the whole thing and use Ctrl-T to convert it into a table, and let's just remove the filter buttons. I don't need those, and also the banded rows. The reason we're using tables here instead of just regular Excel ranges is because using a table allows us to reference the table column by its name, which means that anytime we add a new row to this table, two things will happen. The first thing is that all the formulas in the table will auto-populate for the new row, for the new item that we added. And at the same time, every formula that we have that references this table will be auto-updated to include the entire column. So if we use the range reference for our category column, we'll have to update it throughout all our formulas every time we add a new category. But by using tables, we essentially have Excel auto-update our ranges for us. Let's expand that a bit, and let's provide the classes. So those are all expense, and those two are income. And now let's build our table where we'll actually be tracking those numbers. So we'll have amount, have the category, which we'll pick from those categories, the date, which we'll use to make sure that we place it in the right month, also have the class, and also have some notes if we need them. I'm gonna format this as a header as well. Let's say we add 60 for entertainment. I'm gonna format this as accounting format. I wanna have my category entertainment, but I don't want to be typing it. So we can use data validation to create a drop-down here. Say data validation, and I'll say that I want it to be a list. So let's hit cancel here, and first let's go to this table anywhere within it, and to see this tab table design. It's the table name is table 1, and I want to say that it's going to be named categories. And now we can reference it as table categories, and this is the column category. So if I come back here and I say data validation, I want a list, and I want to say that this is going to be categories, and in square brackets, category, the name of the column. So I'm referencing the table and the columns. And for some reason, this doesn't work. So there's some issue for Excel translating this into a list. So what we can use is the indirect formula. This would allow us to pretty much grab this reference and then translate it to the format that data validation wants. And also don't forget that we have to put this in quotation marks within the indirect formula. Hit OK. Now we get this little drop down, and it should work just fine. So now if I come here and say car insurance, add this as an expense, you see that it was automatically added to our table. Now, if I come here and use the drop down, you see that I have it here automatically populated. I don't have to change the data validation. So let's say that this is entertainment. Our date is January 15. I want to format this as a short date. And for our class, we want it to be automatically grabbed from here. Just going to use a simple VLOOKUP formula, and we'll be VLOOKUPing this. And here I'll see if I can grab the whole table. You see, if I come to here, it says categories #all, category to class. So I'm grabbing everything from this table, meaning that when we extend this table, this would still work. On the second column, and I want false, I want an exact match, and this grabs our class. And for notes, let's say going to the cinema. Now we can grab this whole thing with Control T and convert this to a table as well. Come here, table design, I prefer this one, and I'm gonna remove the filter button and leave the banded rows because this would probably have more rows in it. Then I wanna fix this here by going to View, Free Space, and Free Space so that everything above doesn't scroll, because I want to be able to scroll down through all the items here, but I always want my summaries to stay at the top. Let's add a few more lines. I'm gonna say 75, say eating out, but you see that if I don't have anything here, this says NA, and I don't like it. So let's just go ahead and change the first formula to if error, and then at the end, I'm gonna add NA like this. And you see that the other cool thing about using tables is that I edited the formula here, and it auto-adjust it on the second row. And this would work with however many rows I have. So now that this is NA, I know that I'm supposed to select type. Let's say this is eating out, and this happened on January 18th, 24. I added a few more items here, some income items, a bit more expense items. I just want to have a bit more data when we're building the formulas here. And you see this is so in January, but I also added one line in February just to make sure that our formulas would work correctly. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, you might find my free newsletter interesting as well. I write a weekly newsletter about business, startups, productivity, Excel, finance, things like that. You can check it out, the first link in the description below. And if you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. No hard feelings. Now let's get back to Excel. So for our income, we'll write a sum ifs formula, and it's a bit more complex because we want to make sure that this date falls between those two. That's why we have a start and end date here instead of just the month number. So what we'll say is sum ifs, and our sum range will be this here, table to amount, and we can go in and change the name of the table afterwards. But it's important to grab it like that so that it auto expands. And my first criteria range would be the date. I want the date to be below the end date and above the start date. So my criteria for this first criteria range would be, in quotes, I'll say above or equals, and then I'm gonna concatenate that with the ampersand to my start date, and I'm gonna fix the column here, cycling through with F4 until I have the $sign only for the column. Then my second criteria range would once again be my date, but this time I want it to be below or equal, and I'm gonna concatenate that to the end date, and the same thing, I'm gonna cycle through until I have only the column fixed. That way I'll be able to copy this formula for both the income and the expense columns. And my third rule, my third criteria range would be that I would want the class, and my criteria would be that I want the class to be this thing up here, income. So in this column, I only want income items to be summed, and in this I only want expense items to be summed. And this one here will also cycle with F4 and just fix the row. So as I copy it down, I want it to reference still the fifth row, but if I copy it over, I want it to switch to expenses here. And that's our sum ifs formula. Now we can copy this everywhere, Control D to copy it down, and let's see if it calculated correctly. So if we grab our expenses here, and I'm selecting those, holding Control, you see that we have 1,737, which is what we have here. And if I grab my salary and my AdSense revenue from January, this one is from February, I get 2,568, and I also have my $50 of AdSense revenue in February. And this gives us a simple summary of our finances over each month. It's not too complex, it doesn't have a lot of detail, and that's the purpose, to make it as simple as possible. Because honestly, I've tried different ones, and I've built really complex personal finance trackers with debt in them, with debt amortization, with car installments and repayment schedules and stuff like that. And at some point, you just lose the focus and the motivation to actually fill things out. So this is really simple. Every night when I come back home, I spend like 2-3 minutes just looking through my bank app, and also thinking about stuff that I paid in cash, and I just add those, and I get this really neat summary up here where I can aim to have my net income be positive each month, which would allow me to put some money to the side. Okay, let's also build this summary here to be able to see where our cash is going, so we can adjust our spending in this regard. For income, we'll have sum ifs, and we'll be grabbing the amount. Once again, this is what we're aggregating. And then our criteria range 1 will be that our category should be, first criteria is this category, and our class should be this class. And you see that it's referencing those as add class, add category, which would help it be automated when it's copied down. And because this is formatted as a table, as soon as I save this formula, it will auto-populate all the rows down. Okay, let's see if that worked. We have our numbers, let's format them in the accounting format. And we see that we made a mistake because we referenced this class here. So it calculated everything in this column, but we actually want it to be linked to this class up here. We're gonna delete this reference to class, and I wanted to grab this one. And you see here that once again, it's referencing the headers and the header income. Paste this, and now if I just copy it over to the site with Control R, I still get the same value because it's still referencing my income header here. I can just come in here and change this to expense, and now it's calculating my expenses here. So let's check it. 1737, and my income is 2618, which is 2618 in total. Something else that you can do is you can split those by month, but from my perspective, it gets a bit more convoluted, and this is a really nice and easy way to track everything in a really simple format that only takes a few minutes per day, and it still provides a lot of value. So the first thing that you can do here is make sure that your net income stays positive, so you're able to put some money aside, build a cushion or whatever, or think about like larger purchases. And the other huge benefit for me is being able to look at where the spend is aggregating. So if, let's say, I see that I'm paying too much for eating out, see here, $238 for eating out, that's a lot. So maybe I need to dial back that, and instead of paying $60 to eat out, I can switch to paying $10 for groceries and cooking at home. I love the simplicity of this finances tracker because it allows me to really not think about it. You only need a few minutes every day, and at the same time, the insights that you can get from just tracking this rudimentary level of detail are quite beneficial if you want to get your finances into order. Now, if you're up for something a bit more complex, I suggest you watch this video about creating project timelines and project trackers in Excel. It's gonna teach you a lot about conditional formatting. Thank you for watching, and okay, bye.